Hi, my name is Sandeep. In this video, I would guide you through the installation and the configuring of Symantec Central Quarantine. Now, before we install the Symantec Central Quarantine, there are a few things that we need to consider. We need to keep in mind the following things. Administrator rights are required to install the Quarantine console and the Quarantine server. Please ensure that you have proper rights before starting the installation. Before installing Symantec Central Quarantine, make sure that you uninstall any previous version of Central Quarantine that exists on the computer. The Central Quarantine is composed of Quarantine server and the Quarantine console. You can install the Quarantine server and the Quarantine console on the same computers or on different computers with Windows 2000 XP or 2003. The Quarantine console must share a network protocol, TCP/IP, with the Quarantine server to configure with. Products that use Quarantine can forward files to the Quarantine server using TCP/IP. Ensure that this particular network protocol is installed on the Quarantine server. Now coming to the basic system requirements for the Central Quarantine server. We require Windows 2000 Professional Server Advanced Server, XP Professional Server 2003 Web Standard Enterprise or Data Center. We also need Microsoft Internet Explorer 5.5 Service Pack 2, 128-bit encryption or later. If you install Symantec Endpoint Protection on this computer, Microsoft Internet Explorer 6 or later is required. Also ensure that it has 128 MB of RAM, a minimum swap file size of 250 MB, 40 MB of available disk space, 500 MB to 4 GB of available disk space for quarantined items. Now I'd like to inform you that if you run Windows XP, system disk space usage is increased if the system restore functionality is enabled. Coming to the Quarantine console, the basic requirements remain the same except for the RAM, wherein you can manage with 64 MB of RAM, 35 MB of disk space. We also require Microsoft Management Console 1.2. As I had mentioned, there is no particular sequence that we need to install the Quarantine server first or the Quarantine console. It can be done either ways. However, when you install Quarantine server, it would ask you for a restart. It would prompt you to restart your machine. It's your choice. In case you wish to restart it then and there, it's fine, else you can do it later on. However, the console would not ask you for the same. The console would be a Microsoft Management Console snapping through which you can manage the server. So let's go ahead and install the Quarantine server. We have two options, the setup.exe or the quarantine server.msi. I go ahead with the setup.exe. You are prompted with this particular wizard. We need to follow the on-screen instructions. Let's click on next here. Well, as usual, we need to accept the license agreement. Let's click on next here. This is the option where you can change the path, the folder where you want this particular installation to go through. By default, it's C program files, Symantec, Quarantine. Under Quarantine, we have server. In case you wish to change it, you can click on change and do the needful. As of now, I do have space on the C drive, so I would go ahead and install it on the C drive. I click on next. Now this is the amount of disk space that we would like, or rather you would like to give it for the incoming sample submission from the clients. Now by default it's 500 MB. In case we do not enter any space, then the central quarantine will refuse accepting additional submissions. So if you wish, you can go ahead and increase this. Let's click on next again. Now this is something that we need to enter. So I would go ahead with some dummy information. I've entered all this information, the credentials that are required, and then click on next. We are prompted with the screen with gateway name. Now if you have a look at my previous presentation, I have mentioned what a gateway is and how it's responsible for submitting the samples and getting the definitions as well. Okay, by default the gateway name is gateway.dis.symantec.com. However, this field can be subsequently modified through the Quarantine console snap-in, which I would show you when we install the Quarantine console. As of now, we are installing the Quarantine server. So let's click on next and let the installation go through. We need to click on install. The installation would take approximately 2 to 3 minutes, or maybe at times 4 minutes, depending on the system configuration. So please be patient. Once the installation of the Quarantine server is done, I would guide you through the installation of the Quarantine console. See snapping, which is responsible to configure the Quarantine server. I would once again like to inform you that there is no particular sequence as to what needs to be installed first. It can either be the Quarantine server or the Quarantine console. Now that the Quarantine server installation is complete, let's click on finish. And as I had mentioned earlier, it would ask you for a restart. As of now, we would click on no because we would restart the machine later. Let's go back and select the Quarantine console. Now, for your information, this particular Quarantine console and Quarantine server, let me quickly show you the location of these files. There's a folder named Central Queue. Under Central Queue folder, you would find the Quarantine server folder and the Quarantine console. Now, till the MR5 version, it was under CD2. Under CD2, you would find a Central Queue named folder, and under that folder you would have the Quarantine server and the Quarantine console folder. However, in RU6 it's located in the DVD itself. When you open up the DVD, you would see the SEP-MSEP, the Central Queue folder as well, and you would have these two folders, the Quarantine server and the Quarantine console. We have already installed the Quarantine server. Let's go ahead and install the Quarantine console. As mentioned, we have two options, the setup.exe or the Quarantine console.msi. I double click on setup.exe. You would see a wizard popping up and we need to follow the on-screen instructions. We have the option to change the location, the path. By default, it's C program files, Symantec, Quarantine console. I have enough space on the C drive, and that's the reason I'm going ahead with the installation. It will install it on the C drive. I click on install and it starts the installation. Once the Quarantine console is installed, I would guide you through the tabs, the various tabs that are available. and the features associated with them. As of now, it's doing the installation for the Quantine console. If you see, it's installing the latest virus definitions as of now. The installation is complete. Let's click on Finish. Unlike the Quantine server, it did not ask us for a restart. The console will not ask you for the restart. Let's go ahead and log in to the Quantine console. To open up the Symantec Central Quantine, you need to go to Start, All Programs, and under All Programs you would find Symantec Central Quantine. Once we open this particular snap-in, the management, the MMC, right click on Symantec Central Quantine and we need to select Attach to Server. As mentioned, it can be installed on the same machine on which the Quantine server is installed, or it can be on a different machine. So if we have installed the server, the Quantine server, on the same machine, it would be this computer, else it would be a different computer if it's installed on a different machine. You can click on Browse and you can search for the network, search for the machine on the network, else you can give the name, the username, password, and the domain. As of now, since it was installed on the same machine, I would select this computer and then click Finish. The Symantec Central Quantine console is open, and for us to attach a particular server, we need to right click on it and click on Attach to Server. As mentioned earlier, it can be this particular computer or it can be another computer as well. When I say another computer, it means another computer within the domain. You need to enter the credentials and then go ahead and click Next. As of now, it's installed on this computer, so I would select this computer and then click on Finish. It's attached this particular local machine to the central Quantine. I right click on it and now click on Properties. These are the various tabs that I was talking about earlier in the video. I would guide you through each of these tabs one by one. We have already enabled the Symantec Central Quantine server by right clicking on the Quantine server, attach, and then attaching it to a local computer or another computer on the network on which the Symantec Central Quantine server has been installed. Coming to the Symantec Central Quantine properties, first we have the General tab. This property lets you specify the primary Quantine settings such as folder location of the Quantine. This property also lets you specify the settings for the maximum size of the folder's contents, the listening protocol for communication with clients, and the console auto refresh. Generally, we need to put a check here, listen on IP, and the default port is 3333. However, please do ensure that listen on SPX is unchecked. The console auto refresh interval, you can make the necessary changes. Let's come to web communication. This property lets you specify the communication settings, including the computer name of the Symantec gateway and the following security settings. And this is the place where you can go ahead and change the gateway name. Under security settings, we have secure submission sends virus samples to Symantec by using secure socket layer, the SSL. Secure download uses SSL to receive updated definitions from Symantec. Symantec Immune System Gateway specifies the gateway computer that communicates with the semantic security response, which is here. Next, we come to firewall settings. This property lets you specify how to communicate with and through a proxy firewall if your network uses one. If your network uses a proxy firewall, it can be configured. Firewall name is the IP address or the name of the firewall. The firewall port is the port on which communication with the firewall will take place. The firewall username is the username to communicate with the firewall, of course, and the firewall password is the password to communicate with the firewall. Let's come to sample policy. This tab lets you specify how samples are submitted and processed. First is the automatic sample submission. It automatically queues virus samples for analysis. The queue check interval is the frequency at which the quarantine is checked for new item. By default, it's 1 minute. Strip user data from simple maintains security by removing potentially sensitive data from sample submission. Status query interval is the frequency at which the gateway is polled for status changes about submitted samples. Let's go to definition policy. This tab lets you specify how antivirus and anti-spyware definitions are processed. We have the active sequence number is the sequence number of the currently installed definitions on the quarantine server. As of now, it shows not available because I have not connected it to the internet. Certified definition interval is the frequency in minutes for polling the gateway for updated certified definition. The default settings is 3 times a day. Customer information, you would see the information that we had filled up when we installed the Semantic Central Quarantine server. Let's take a look at alerting. As the name specifies, this tab lets you configure the alerting for specific events. Coming to general errors, this tab lists the history of the quarantine server errors in case there are any. As of now, it says that the quarantine server cannot connect to the gateway to download definitions. As I had mentioned, it's not connected. When you open up the Semantic Central Quarantine, you would see, in case there are files which are quarantined, you would see the file name, the username, the user whose file was infected, in fact, computer on which the infected item was discovered, analyze, it indicates whether the sample was analyzed, age indicates the date that the sample was quarantined, sample state would be the current state of the sample, definitions needed, sequence number of the definitions set that is needed to resolve the virus. Status would be the processing state of the sample, and virus would be the name of the virus that is identified. To view the quarantine item in the Semantic Central Quarantine console in the left pane, we need to click on Semantic Central Quarantine, and the quarantine items are listed in the right pane. In case there are quarantine items listed out here, you can select them and delete them in case you do not require them. I hope this video was useful to you, and thank you for watching.